Hi everyone. Today I'm going to redo a demonstration for the front corner of a lined jacket, and it's a special request from SGnappettas. Okay, so this is the pattern I used for my first demonstration of the front corner with the pleat and the length. This is the demo itself, and this is the pattern. As you could see, there's a cut corner here. That's the center front, and the facing part that goes like that, and the lining comes over here. So if you notice, it's the center front area that is shorter, and what I do is I just keep a seam allowance at the bottom to eliminate the thickness. But as you could see also, my facing goes 2 seam allowance further than my cut to make sure it stays clean at the corner here. So you have two seam allowance over here. So I redid the sample, and you cannot see no difference. It's going to look exactly the same. Basically, it's only inside that if you have a full hem pattern, you're going to have a lot of excess of fabric inside. So this is the area that I usually cut. So again, if you want to cut it on your pattern, you overlap your facing on your garment, and from the end of your facing you come back in twice the seam allowance value, and for this area you just keep a seam allowance. Doesn't matter if it's 1.5 centimeter, 1 centimeter, or 5/8 if you're in inches. So that's the area I'm cutting right over here. So this is my new pattern that I cut, as you could see. Now we have, whoops, upside down. Now we have the facing and the garment the same length, and I do have my lining that is 1 inch shorter. To calculate the fold line of the lining, here's the calculation. You take from the hemline whatever you have down there. So if you have 2 inches, for example, you do 2 inches plus whatever you have from the same level on the lining. So this is 1 inch. So 2 inch plus 1 inch divided by 2, and that's the position of your fold line notches for the lining. Lining has to go higher than the self to make sure it's not showing from the outside. So remember, that's exactly what you're going to get. And if I take my sample that I did before, you'll get exactly the same thing. The steps we'll do are exactly the same also, but the manipulation might look a little different. So I did cut it, and I will sew it for you. Okay, so the number 1 is to press both hems, to press the lining and the self fabric. You get the crease of the hem. And number 2 is going to be to assemble at the center front the self, the main piece, with the facing. So you assemble with the seam allowance that you have on your pattern. If you have 5/8, like in that case, you're going to go 5/8. I'm not used to sew with the inches measurement anymore, so I'll make sure I'm straight using my little guide, and you sew your center front all the way. Part of the step 2 is to do the understitch. So make your understitch on the facing at 1 millimeter. Number 3 is going to be to assemble the lining with the facing, also following your seam allowance. And this time you're going to stop sewing and back tack at the fold line of your lining. Okay, so now that the lining, facing, and bodice are assembled, what you do is you're folding on the facing and bodice line. So you're folding, and you make sure that the seam allowance goes towards the facing. You should have a notch for your 2 centimeter hem here, right here, and that's where you're going to start the sewing. And make sure your facing and bodice are aligned. You could even lift the lining, as you could see, and you see the crease of your hem. So that's your guide. It's exactly the line where you're going to sew at the hemline. And stop sewing at the seam line. So I'm stopping right at the seam line. Cut the thread. This is my number 4. My number 5 is going to be to attach the bottom of the lining to the bottom of the jacket. So yes, it's shifting a bit. Everything is going to take its place right after. So now I put them together, align bottom of lining with bottom of the garment, and this time I'm going to start sewing at the seam line of the lining. So at 5/8, and you sew your hem. You could go all around your jacket, no problem. So what we have left to do is just to turn it inside out and close that corner. So in my sample I showed you before, I'm cutting out this extra, but if you want to keep it, you just fold it with your thumb inside the corner. You hold the corner and you turn it out. So you're gonna have your nice corner. So it's important to push inside your seam allowance flat, and you see a little distance just like in my demo, and that's the little area that you have to close or by hand. Make sure you push your seam towards the facing, or you place it all nice and flat. You could press, do your pressing. When it's nice and flat, put your hand between the lining and the garment and just go grab this area, and you could sew it flat. Close the little corner. So I'm doing it now. It's a tiny seam, and I'm going to do a few back tack just to make it more obvious for you to see, like a darker, but you just go one time for sure with a little back tack. Et voila. So same corner, same finishing, nobody knows. If you have a lightweight fabric like this one, it's just a little thicker inside because your hem is there. I'm opening, you see, all the excess of fabric. So it would be a good thing for you to learn how to cut that corner, but do it on a practice, not on an actual garment, just to make sure you understand. Okay, so I hope you enjoy. Before letting you go, I just wanted to tell you that even the second finishing, the one that was in an angle, I try it with the big hem inside, and it's also working. So you could do both demonstration with the long hem allowance, no problem. I hope it did answer your question. and it was really a pleasure. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate. Bye.